family, welcome back to the second part of our asymmetric yoke and hem blouse. We drafted this pattern in our previous video and I promised to bring the cutting and the sewing part in today's video. If you're joining me for the first time today, you're welcome to my channel. Please, I recommend you watch the previous video which I put out last week. The link to that video will be in the description of this video. To my returning subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back to watch my video. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. Turn on the notification bell. I upload sewing tutorials, DIY videos, style inspiration, and beautiful fashion videos on this channel. Without further ado, let's begin. So that's the sleeve. I used my basic sleeve pattern to cut the sleeve, and I cut two pieces of the sleeve, as you can see here. So I just marked F and B. It's just faint, it's slightly faint, but I marked it so that I will know where it goes at the front and where it goes at the back. So for the back yoke, as you know, we already added our zipper allowance at the back, so you don't need to add any allowance to that side. Just add ½ inch to the bottom and 0.25 to the armhole. There's already ½ inch on the shoulder line as well, which you don't need to add. So I cut two pieces for the main fabric and two pieces for the lining. We're using chiffon for the black part of the project. So as you can see, you know, chiffon is usually transparent, okay, and I don't want it to be transparent. That's why I had to cut 100% cotton to line it with. So this is optional. You can use double of chiffon or any fabric you want, or you can just use just chiffon if you don't mind it being transparent, okay? So it's your choice. And this is for the front yoke. I cut one piece for my chiffon and I cut the 100% cotton as well to line it with. So I also cut a strip of 1.5 inch width, and this will go on the button overlap at the front. Then for the left side of our blouse, I cut one piece for the pattern, the main fabric, and one piece for the lining. Okay, you need to add ½ inch on the neckline, 0.25 on the armhole. We already have our zipper allowance, our seam allowance, so you don't need to add anything to this side. Now for the right side of our front piece, this is what we have. Okay, so I had to add 1 inch for seam allowance on the side. Then at the bottom, I cut with ½ inch seam allowance. Then at the top as well, I added ½ inch on the neckline. So while cutting the lining, just make the lining ½ inch shorter than the main fabric, okay, so that by the time you fold, it will conceal your seam and the lining as well, okay. Then for the back pattern, we already have our zipper allowance, so you don't need to add any allowance to that side. Just add ½ inch to the bottom. We also have our seam allowance, so you don't need to add anything to the side. Then I added 0.25 to the armhole and ½ inch to the top, okay. So for this pattern as well, you need to make it ½ inch longer than the lining. So I have two pieces of my main fabric and two pieces of the lining. Okay, remember we had our first line, then we measured 2 inches, and we said this is where the button is going to overlap. Now for that point that the button is going to overlap, our first 1 inch there, okay, this first 1 inch we marked, we're going to fold our fabric from that point. Okay, it's advisable to make a notch here and make a notch at the bottom as well, so that will guide you to know where exactly you're working on. From that extension, fold this in. You can trim the extra piece at the top away. So that's it for that side. Then for this other side as well, we're also going to, I've already made a notch there on that side. So remember we measured 1.5 on this side. Okay, that means it's 0.75 on each side. So from the point where your 0.75 is, you're going to fold it in. Then at the bottom as well, where the 0.75 is, you're going to fold it in. So you're leaving an extra 0.75. You can also trim that away. Okay, when you trim that, so you have it nice and flat. So it runs like that. So just watch closely and see how I'm going to sew each of these pieces. If you think you miss any parts of the sewing, just pause, go back and play it slowly so that you catch it, okay? So for the back pattern, we'll sew the bottom of the two back pieces, okay? So we'll sew the bottom, the lining and the main fabric. Then you're going to move it up a bit. Okay, move it up by ½ inch because the top is going to be shorter, because you know we took off ½ inch while cutting the lining. So just push it up a bit so that it will conceal your lining at the bottom. When you've aligned the neckline, then you're going to now sew the zipper allowance there. Okay, after that we'll now join the yoke. So I've done the dart as well. So for the front, I've picked the right part of the blouse, and on that allowance there, I've gone ahead to iron it. Okay, so just iron that point to indicate where the allowance starts from. So once you've done that, that extra piece that I cut, the 1.5 inch strip that I cut, you're going to fold into two and iron. Okay, fold into two and give it a good press. Then you place it on that point. Now you see where the edge is, the sharp edge where we ironed. So you place this there. Just leave out about 1 centimeter. Okay, just leave out just a little pinch. We just want it peeking out a bit. Okay, so you pin that there, just 1 centimeter. Look, that's all we need. So you pin it there. Then you're going to pin it all the way to the bottom like that. Okay, so you're now going to sew on that line. So I've gone ahead to sew that with my 1 centimeter. When you fold it in, this is what you're going to have. So just a little bit out on that point. And so next up, we're going to pin our yoke. This point where we made a notch, that's where we're starting from. So what we need to do is to turn the yoke that way, and you're going to pin it along that neckline. Okay, so I've sewn it. This is what it looks like, and I've left out my 1/4 inch there. So next up, we're going to pin the right hand side and we're going to sew it as well. So you start from where the 1 inch stops, that's there. So that's where you start from to pin the other side. Okay, so that's our 1 inch. So start from there. I'm going to pin it. So fold this in like that. So when you're folding it, take note of the black side you want to reveal. So you're going to fold from the seam line. That seam line there, that's where you're going to fold from. So fold it like that and place it on the other side. Okay, and you're going to pin that as well. But you pin it independently. So you pin these two independent from the yoke. Okay, so now we'll take this to the machine and we're going to sew like that. Okay, so once you've sewn that, this is what it will look like. Just give it a good press, and this is what the front will look like. Do a top stitch there. Just do a little top stitch there, or you can use a needle to tack it. Then you align it nicely to the bottom. Pin it in place to secure that while we finish off the lining. So for the lining, you need to we need to sew our dart. Okay, just notch same point where the dart is supposed to be, then you sew it. So just one quick tip: when cutting the lining, you have to make the lining 1 inch shorter than the main fabric. Okay, so make it 1 inch shorter on this button allowance part. Okay, so reduce it by 1 inch so that you can sew it from the end of that fabric. I hope this makes sense. Okay, so first off, we'll begin with the bottom, because you know we cut out ½ inch for our hemming allowance from the lining. So you need to start from that point so that by the time you sew it, it will align with the top beads. Okay, so we'll sew that bottom part, then we turn it the right way out. Then you now sew from that point. Okay, when you turn it, you now hold onto that bottom extension. Okay, so place it like that, like that, like that, and you're going to sew all the way to that sweetheart neck. Okay, when you get there, you turn it the other way. So you turn it like that, and you're going to continue until you get to the armhole. Okay, then you flip it around, and that's what it will look like. Then on the other side as well, you do the same. Okay, you use the lining. You start from the bottom, you sew the bottom bit. Okay, start from that edge and sew to that point. When you get there, this lining is going to be 1 inch shorter, so you'll be able to merge it on that point. When you pull it up, it will be shorter. Then you start from there and you're going to sew it until you get to that allowance you have there. Okay, when you get there, you flip it the wrong way out. So you flip it like that, and you also sew it onto the yoke. Okay, so by that, you're going to turn it like that and sew it on the yoke. So I finished up the front piece, and this is what it looks like. So you can see how I neatly joined the yoke on that extension and the lining. Okay, so it's now neatly placed. That's the bottom bit. Okay, so this is what the front looks like. So just overlap that point and you can do your top stitch there. Okay, then you fix your buttons there. So now we'll need to sew up our shoulders. So pin the front and the back shoulder together and finish that up as well. So expand that there and this side as well. So get the midpoint, pin it in place. Then we're going to sew from that point and cross over there and sew there. Then we'll pin the other side as well. Then when we've sewn the shoulder, we'll now sew up the sides. Okay, so we'll follow our 1 inch seam allowance. Just place that in place. So place the 2 front piece, main fabric like that, and you're going to sew. So keep sewing until we'll get to that bottom. We'll continue on the other side. Okay, until we get to the other side of the armhole. Then when we've done that, we'll go to the other side as well. So follow your 1 inch seam allowance and sew. Okay, when I've done all that, I'll come and show you the next step. So after sewing the side seam, make sure you flatten out the seam. Okay, so spread it out like that, spread it out like that and flatten it out. Okay, then you pin it in place, derive the midpoint and pin that, pin both seams together. Then you're going to prepare the sleeves. So I've gone ahead to prepare my sleeves. Just sew them. Okay. So remember the points where we marked front and back. So that's the front and this is the back. So we're now going to align that and sew it. Okay. So pin it nicely. Then you're going to sew around, pin the other one as well, and you're going to sew around it. Remember to overlock your armhole, okay? So that's the only part that needs overlocking really, so it doesn't fray. Every other part was turned in when we're sewing. Okay, so finally you're going to place your buttons. So place your buttons along that line. Okay, then at the back you're going to add your zipper, and that's it. Your blouse is ready. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments for me and I'll respond as quickly as I can. If you enjoyed today's video, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel if you've not done so, drop me a comment, let me know what you think about the video, and I'll see you in my